it's Kate. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Kate. I'm a two-time brain cancer survivor, and this is my channel where I take you into my world. And today is the day we are going to honor the success that was the Barbie movie. I've seen it, I loved it, I thought it was really well done, and it made me want to go back and rewatch all the Barbie movies I had from growing up and figure out which one out of those ones is actually the best. And so that's what we're gonna do today. So let's get into it. Now, I did end up finding the whole tier thing that everyone has been using, hence why my computer's here. And so we're gonna be putting them into categories, and then we're gonna figure out which one out of the Barbie movies that I have seen is actually the best. Fun fact for you all, I actually grew up with Barbie. There wasn't a point in my life where Barbie was not a thing, and that was because the very first Barbie movie was released the year I was born, and so I'm very excited to be doing this video. I've also dressed up for the occasion. I put on pink makeup and pink clothing for it all, so that's nice. But anyway, the different categories that we're going to be putting the individual movies into are, at the very, very top, superb in every way, an absolute favourite, basic but delightful, could have been better, didn't really like it, failure to deliver, and who thought making this was a good idea. And the last one at the very, very bottom was didn't see it. I'm not really going to be using that one unless it's going to be the Barbie movies that I did not see. At the moment though, as you probably can see on the screen, I've put all the ones I have seen at the bottom just so it's easier for me to grab and drag and drop and all that. So, to start off with, the first movie out of all of these movies that came out was Barbie in the Nutcracker, which came out 2001. Fun fact for all of you, I was actually born in 2001, and so I was born when this movie came out, which is really wild to consider. Also, when we had this movie, we had it on VHS, which for those who don't know is this concoction of video playing. I still have it somewhere in my house. It's protected and preserved. So, this movie, anyone who knows the story of the Nutcracker, it's pretty well known. I actually liked how Clara, who Barbie plays, that's the protagonist Barbie is, that's the protagonist that Barbie portrays. She's actually really, really smart and doesn't try to be the hero at the beginning. She's very much, I want to stay in my house, you can go and do your thing with the Mouse King, I don't want to be a part of it. And I liked how they didn't make her the automatic, oh my gosh, I'm going to jump in and be the hero. They made her more sensible, which I thought was pretty cool. I also loved how they incorporated the music from the ballet, because the Nutcracker is a ballet, and I absolutely love the ballet, and so incorporating the music and the dancing was really, really clever on their end. I definitely think that was a very good idea. I also loved, I have their names written down on my phone, Captain Candy and Major Mint, which are two of the characters that we meet in the film. They were very entertaining to watch. I loved watching them bicker and just be basically an old married couple when you actually look at it. My only real question with this film, because I loved how it was a story that Barbie was telling one of her younger sisters, I thought that was really clever. But when we got to the end of the story, the little necklace that was going to help her go home, kind of like the ruby slippers for Wizard of Oz, got opened by the Rat King. And the Rat King, who was also voiced by Tim Curry, which was absolutely amazing. The Rat King is the villain. He opens up the necklace, and then Clara gets sent back home away from the Nutcracker, who she's fallen in love with. And then at the very end, one of the characters is like, oh, I'd like you to meet this old friend of mine. His son was here and we bumped into him. And it's the Nutcracker, and so I really don't quite understand how the Nutcracker came back to Clara in the real world. And they just very much left it ambiguous and didn't really clear it up. But I gave this, on a 1 out of 10 scale, a 9. And so I'm going to put Nutcracker in the absolute favourite. Because I love it, it's absolutely amazing, but because of that giant loophole of how on earth the Nutcracker got back to where he was, kind of just made it really, huh? What happened? Anyway, moving on to the next one. So, the next movie that came out was Barbie in Rapunzel. This came out in 2002. I love this version of Rapunzel. I think it's an absolute beautiful story. I did also love how they hinted at the origins of the story. For those who do not know, Rapunzel is a German fairy tale, and I love how they hinted at it through character names. And though I do think it's kind of odd that their Mother Gothel is called Gothel, and Disney did Mother Gothel. So I hope that's just because they want to honor the origin, but I don't know, I just find it ironic that Disney stole the name Gothel from this if it's not original from the story. But if it is, then that's a very good connection. I loved how there were multiple characters having different character growth moments. Like you had Rapunzel having her bravery to sneak out and defy her kidnapper when she realizes that she's been locked in the tower and everything. You have Penelope the dragon. Oh, I love Penelope. I love her to pieces. I wish I could hug her. She has to overcome her fear of heights. She has to overcome her fear of her father to help Rapunzel escape. And I love it. But another thing that I actually do love about this film was they actually gave Gothel a reason to kidnap Rapunzel. Spoiler alert for those who don't know the film. Mother Gothel is obsessed with Rapunzel's father, who's one of the kings. And the king, he didn't choose to marry Gothel, even though they were in love for a short period of time. He chose to marry somebody else, who ended up being Rapunzel's mother. And so Gothel was like, I'm going to steal your kid. That's not how it actually is in the original fairy tale. The original fairy tale, it's a trade, kind of. It was a deal that they made. But I think that was a very, like, even though she's insane, obviously Gothel is insane, it gave her a reason to kidnap the baby, which I think is nice, because sometimes when creating villains, films forget to give them a reason why. But speaking about the kings though, they also have growth, because the kings think, the father of Rapunzel thinks that the other king, who's the father of the prince, is the one that kidnapped the daughter and all that stuff, and so there's like rivalry with kingdoms, which are obviously solved when Rapunzel and the prince get married. But there are other characters that have growth, because they realize, oh, it actually was, neither of us were in the wrong, neither of us were in the right, but neither of us were in the wrong. But anyway, because of that, and because of my absolute admiration and love for Penelope, the purple dragon, Penelope, I love her to pieces, this film automatically is going up to superb in every single way. And if you do not agree with me on this, then you can fight me in the comments about it, because that's just my opinion. The third movie that came out was Swan Lake. Once again, another movie based off a ballet, and so they obviously had moments from the ballet that were there, which I absolutely adored having. They were very, very cute. They had the little swan dance, if you know what that is, where the 4 swans dance across the stage and they're like holding hands, and I love it. It's one of my favourite pieces of ballet ever. The unicorn, Layla, I can never remember her name. I love how sarcastic she is throughout the whole film. She always makes me laugh and she's very funny, and I absolutely adore that when they have a comedic character that's not afraid to be absolutely silly. I absolutely adore the little romantic play between Iva, who's one of the fairy pixies, elves, I don't know what they're called, the little child's magical creatures. Iva turns into a hedgehog. That's his curse by Rothbard. He's forced to turn into a hedgehog. He has a female that turns into, a little girl that turns into a skunk. And the two of them have such a cute puppy love romantic to them, and it's, oh, it just makes my heart swell to see that. There were a few loopholes though in this film. As someone who studies film, I can't help but notice the loopholes. The first loophole is that when you first meet Odette, who's our protagonist, it's the character Barbie is playing in this film, you see her dancing in her bakery that her father owns, and she's quite good. She's very, very good. But then when the prince finds her in the magical kingdom, after she's been turned into a swan and she can't leave and all that stuff, she's like, oh, I can't dance, I don't know how to. And I'm like, girl, I saw you dance at the beginning of the film. Don't lie to me. So I did find that quite frustrating when there's something so blatantly obvious is obviously there. Another plot hole that really, really bugged me was when they were trying to defeat Rothbart and figure out a way to do that, figure out a way to get into his castle and defeat him. The little elf, the small creatures that Ivor is, that's where they escaped from. They escaped from Rothbart's castle, and they were like, oh, we don't know a way to get in. How did you get out if you don't know a way to get in? So it really just bugged me a little bit. I do absolutely find it hilarious, Rothbart's design. He has the biggest nose I have ever seen in a Barbie movie, and I find it absolutely hilarious. So because of the whole plot holes, and also because I felt as though it was kind of odd that Odette's older sister and father did not really care for her for half of the film. It was very close to the end when they were like, oh, she's missing. I'm like, now you realize? Because of that, I am gonna put it under the basic but delightful, because it was a basic storyline. It was basic in how it was. There were a few plot holes, but it was still quite nice to watch. So yeah, I'm gonna put it there for now. Now, the next one that everyone's been waiting for. It has a very obvious position, so I'm just gonna move it before we even start. This is Barbie, Princess and the Pauper. It's superb in every way. It is one of Barbie's best films they ever made. It's an absolute icon in the Barbie film genre. It's one of my favorites. I absolutely adore Annalise and Erica. I absolutely adore Daniel and King Dominic. I absolutely adore the cats. They are so adorable. I love this. I absolutely... it's the best one. There's nothing else I can say. I love how it has a unique storyline when it comes to the reasoning as to why the Princess and the Pauper switched. Because the story of the Princess and the Pauper, most commonly known as the Prince and the Pauper, is a very old fairy tale. It gets made into films quite a lot. I know Disney did one with Mickey Mouse once. And they always have it that they want to just switch lives for a day and experience that life. In this film, spoiler alert, the princess gets kidnapped by the advisor Preminger, who is one of the best villains in the entire villain category as well. And so the whole story is about Daniel, who's her tutor, forcing Erica, not really forcing, asked her to pretend to be the princess so that when the princess meets King Dominic, who she's meant to be marrying, it looks like nothing's out of the ordinary. And then Daniel's plan was that he'll go find Annalise, he'll come back in time, he'll switch them back, and it'll all be safe, everyone will be happy and go home and be lovey-dovey, I don't know. That doesn't happen because Preminger is such a good villain. I love Preminger. He has one of the best villain songs I've ever seen in even any childhood genre. It's one of the best villain songs I've ever heard. The music as well, though, it was the first Barbie musical that they ever made, and so the music is absolutely beautiful and it's so gorgeous. But yeah, because of just great character creation, great everything, it's definitely going to be one of the best Barbie movies, and I don't think they're ever going to be able to top that, to be completely honest. Alright, so the next film on our list is the first of the Fairytopia films. For those who didn't know, it is a story about a girl called Eine, who Barbie plays, obviously, and she doesn't have any wings, and she's a fairy though, but she doesn't have any wings like the rest of the fairies. And so sadly there was Laverna, who's the villain, and she creates this big sickness that affects all the fairies with wings, because the higher up you are, the more exposed you are to the sickness, to the magic and all that. And so because all the other fairies are getting sick, Eine is the only one that's not affected by it because she doesn't have wings, and so she has to go save the day, all that stuff, right? Which is great, it's a good film. There are quite a few questions I have, though, with this film. Number one, why does Eine not have wings? Is there a reason to it? Did her parents do something that cursed them not to be able to have children with wings? And then going into the next question, where is Elena's parents? Because we have her best friend, Delia, I think it's Delia, who constantly talks about how she has to go and check with her mum if it's okay for her to go with Elena on the trip. She has to go back to a certain bedtime type of routine with her mum. Then there are other fairies as well that are talking about how their parents don't want them out past a certain time because of the sickness. And so I am confused as to why Elena doesn't have any parents. She does have the house that she lives in, the flower that she lives in, does have a name, and it kind of is her parent, but it was still very like, where are her actual like fairy parents? So anyway, and then you have Azula. Now Azula is a fairy guardian. She's very powerful. She's like a council person, very like high in seniority, high up in government of the fairy world, basically. And she's meant to be this powerful thing, and when Elena goes to her for help, it seems like, oh, it's all good, it's all chill. But then Elena is asleep, and Azula gets kidnapped by Fungus, who's one of Laverna's henchmen. And it happened really quickly, and it seemed to be very easy for a creature that is half the size of Azula, without wings, was able to kidnap a fairy with wings that's said to have so much power. So that was a bit confusing, because like she's a guardian, isn't she meant to be this all-powerful creature? But then we also have another character that we meet who was the Dryad Dahlia, I think. That's why I get so confused with the names. Delia, I don't know, but the Dryad girl. She used to work for Laverna, and then she realized it was a mistake, but then she was kind of like shunned by fairy community. And they go to her to get her to help them to defeat Laverna and all that stuff, which is great. But then afterwards, we kind of just like never see her again in the movies. And I was like, what happened to her? Did she get redeemed? Was she able to return home and all that stuff? But the good thing is that we do have the amazing, the absolute legend, Bibble. I love Bibble. He kind of saved the film for me, even though no one really understands what he says. And so, because of that, I'm going to put the Fairytopia as basic but delightful with the Swan Lake, purely because it's a good film, but I am probably too old now to truly enjoy it and not question things. So the next film that came out was The Magic of Pegasus. This was another one that had traditional classical music in it, like the first couple films, because it actually has Beethoven music. And if you don't know what Beethoven was, he was the guy that was da-da-da-da, that was Beethoven. So that was horrible. Da-da-da-da. Yeah. Anyway, I'm now just humiliating myself on the internet. Anyway, I loved how in this film Barbie played Anita, and she was very headstrong, very stubborn teenage girl, and I was like, this I recognize. This is a very recognizable character. But it's a great film. She's obsessed with ice skating, she's very good with it, it's got a good storyline, a good villain, and a basic love story that doesn't really interfere too much with the plot of the story, but it's still really good. I love the polar bear Shiver. I thought they were really cute. They were the first animal companion Barbie had that didn't speak, but they were so adorable. I love them. But she's also the first, like Anita was the first Barbie character that actually snuck out of home to go ice skating because her parents grounded her. So I thought that was really nice. I like a nice change to the whole kidnapping or helping someone so they're now trapped in the new place they're helping them with. I thought it was nice that they actually decided to run away, to have fun. One thing that I did question though with this film is that you have the 3 magical items that they find. You have the staff, the crown, and then something else, which I cannot remember. I put a list somewhere. And they're magical items that revealed themselves when Anita did something heroic, did something brave to earn them, basically. Because the whole premise of the story was to defeat the villain and save her older sister, who was turned into a Pegasus. Ta-da, magic of Pegasus. Anyway, but I found it really frustrating that the 3 magical items could not join together naturally. They had to use the assistance of the blacksmith, love interest Aiden, and I feel like they just wanted to give him a bit more of a character to make him important to the storyline, so they made him the blacksmith and everything. But overall, I absolutely loved the story, and I loved Anita's character arc and how she changed from a selfish, I want to do what I want person to someone who helps others. And I think that was a really nice storyline that Barbie portrayed. So with this one, because I absolutely love it and it's so fun to watch, I'm gonna put it up with Nutcracker as an absolute favorite. Now we've come back to the second Fairytopia movie, which was Mermaidia. This is gonna be a bit controversial, I can tell. I liked how we got a little recap of the first film. It's like for the kids that probably forgot what happened, we have a little recap on what Elena did, how she earned wings and all that stuff. I do find it funny that the head fungus character looked a lot like Preminger from The Princess and the Pauper. I thought that was very, very funny. I was looking at it and I was like, oh, no wonder you're the leader of the fungi. But, and my favorite scene out of all three films was when Babur was eating the magical berries and all that stuff. Because with this film, they had to go rescue Prince Nalu, who was the Prince Merman that we meet in the first film. He gets kidnapped to help find a magical berry that could return Laverna back to her fairy self after she was turned into a toad at the end of the first film. And so they have to go underwater, and so they see all these magical berries, and if you bite into them, they make something else happen, and Babur starts biting into them and starts singing different ways, and I thought that was very, very funny. It's a good film, but one character ruined it for me, and that was Norleen. And people are gonna come at me and they're gonna be like, how dare you say that about Norleen? I hate her as a character. I think she's really rude and obnoxious, and she needs to learn respect for others, because it's just, I hate her. And she really just ruined the film for me. And so because of that, people are gonna hate me, please don't hate me, I'm gonna put it as a could have been better film. So it's the lowest film we have at the moment, and it's just because Norleen just ruined it for me, truthfully. Which is sad, but I'm not a fan of people with selfish attitudes. The good thing though is that the film next was one that definitely redeemed Barbie, and that was The 12 Dancing Princesses. I adore this film. This is also one of my favorites. I have a few favorites, not that many, but this is definitely one of my favorites. I think Derek, who's the male protagonist in this film, is one of the best male characters Barbie's ever come up with. He's a shoe cobbler with a talking parrot, and he makes the princesses shoes that they wear through every single night, and he's such a lovely guy, and he's so head over heels for Genevieve, who's the character that Barbie plays, and I love them, I love him, he's adorable. And I also love how with the 12 sisters, normally in retellings of the story they don't have the sisters having any interesting qualities, but the 12 sisters each have a hobby that's unique to them, and I absolutely love that they went and put the detail in for that. The film is just really wholesome, and it's a basic good versus evil, saving the father from being poisoned by the evil aunt who wants the throne. And I love how they once again had classical music thrown in there, and the costume design was absolutely gorgeous. And I also think the battle scene with the guards when they're trying to save their father is one of the best scenes I've ever seen. It allowed the princesses to use their own special trait, their own special hobbies and qualities as a way to defeat the guards. And I thought that was really, really cute and really, really clever to make each princess important to saving their father. And so because I absolutely love this film, no surprise, it's going all the way to the very, very top with Rapunzel and Princess and Pauper, because those three are just iconic. Following 12 Dancing Princesses though, we do have the final of the Fairytopia series, which was Fairytopia Magic of the Rainbow. This was an interesting film. I love the Moon Fairy. What's her name? Loon, it's not Luna, but the Moon Fairy girl. She was actually my favorite character. She's very kooky, very much, I see your future is danger. Very much like Trelawney from Harry Potter. And I loved how her future predictions were always very spooky and scary. I thought that was really funny. I was not a huge fan of the Sunburst Fairy. I thought she was a bit frustrating. And I also found it really frustrating that they had the little pink fairy girl who had like her hair in this weird design, and she could fly using her hair. And yet Elena didn't have any thing to make her fly when she didn't have wings. She had to wait for that, she had to earn them. I thought that was really irritating as a loophole. But the storyline, I don't want to spoil it. Laverna comes back. They end up defeating Laverna. They figure it all out. They all win. But it was a nice way to have a end to the series, and I liked how it presented the idea that Elena, as well as these other fairies who were each representing a different color of the rainbow, were going to be the new guardians. And Elena was chosen by Azula to basically replace her when she's no longer strong enough. I don't know. But it's an interesting film, but there were elements of frustration through it all. But it was still really good. So I'm going to put this with the basic but delightful. Now, the next one, The Island Princess. Good music, really good music. Kind of. There were some songs, also some singing that I was a bit flat, but that's just me with my perfect pitch. But I felt as though one character once again just ruined this film for me. I loved the idea of her being a lost princess on an island, spoiler alert, and that love story with her and the prince that she has, and how kind she is to the animals and tries to help them when they get sick because of the villain. But there was one character that just ruined it for me, and this is the character I hate the most. More than Norleen, more than any other Barbie character I've ever seen, and that's Tika, the elephant. I absolutely despise her. She's so selfish and self-centered and only cares about what she wants and not what Ro or Barbie deserves. And so because of that, I'm gonna put that as a didn't really like it, because as much as I love the music in the film, it's just Tika ruins it for me. Moving on. So the one that follows The Island Princess is Mariposa, which is basically another section of the world of Fairytopia. It starts off with Elena telling Bibble about the story of her friend Mariposa to help him deal with something. And I liked how they had a different voice actor for once. It's always been the same girl, but because it's a different character, it was a completely different voice actress, which was really nice. And I loved how we were able to expand the world of Fairytopia to see the butterfly fairies, which is what Mariposa is. She's a butterfly fairy, instead of just being a normal fairy, which is what Elena is. I did find it a bit frustrating, the jumping back and forth between Elena and Mariposa in the telling of the story and the showing of the story. I just felt that really disconnecting. And I would have preferred if they just did what they did with Swan Lake and Nutcracker, where they just have Barbie telling the story to the person at the beginning and then concluding it at the end. It was nice though seeing the two sisters that Mariposa worked for to evolve with characters. Like, they were very much like ugly stepsister entitlement people, but then when they chose to go on the quest so that they could save the prince and potentially become queen, they realized, oh yeah, we need to become better people. And I loved how they had that, because all the characters were really, really unique, and I absolutely loved that. And I absolutely loved the designs of the butterfly fairies. I thought incorporating designs of butterflies into their actual character design was really beautiful and really, really clever. So I'm gonna put this one as an absolute favorite because I loved how it was just a really good film. Okay, next, the Barbie Diaries. Self-explanatory. Next! After that we have Thumbelina. Well, I don't really like the human in the story, like with her being spoiled. That's like a trend going on here. I don't like spoiled characters in films. I think they're horrible. I don't like them. But I don't like spoiled, selfish brat. And she was a spoiled, selfish brat. I like almost on the same level of Tiki, which is saying something. But I did like the scenes where the Twillabies, which are what Thumbelina is, stopped the bulldozers from destroying their land. Because the whole film is like a kind of propaganda of save the environment type of thing, which I find quite hilarious in a kid's film. But I've seen better Thumbelinas. One that came to mind was a Thumbelina 2D animation film that came out in the 90s or 80s, and It was the actual story of Thumbelina. Because the actual story of Thumbelina is a fairy tale with the prince, and it doesn't have anything connected to saving the planet. And so, because it's not really the Thumbelina story, I'm gonna put it on the failure to deliver section. Because when you go in thinking about Thumbelina, there's a thing that you're expecting. And this environmental save the environment story is not that. So I'm just gonna put it there for now. Following Thumbelina, we have The Diamond Castle. I love this film. It very much reminds me of my friendship with my best friend in the entire world, Amy. When watching this film, I couldn't help but see the similarities in how Barbie and... Did I write her name down? No, Alexa. Yes, Barbie and Alexa. And I felt as though there were moments that reminded me of my friendship with Amy. Not all the moments though. Not all the moments. There was a moment where Alexa was very selfish and didn't want to continue helping Barbie save Melody in the Diamond Castle. She was like, but we found this house and the people in the house said it's for us because of a prophecy, and we have all the clothes we could have wanted and all the food we could have eaten and everything. And she's very much like, I'm gonna stay here and live that life instead of continuing to help this girl we just met and save the world. And I just found that very frustrating, that she was so selfish in wanting her own desires rather than helping others. But anyway, I felt that having twin princes, or twin, no they weren't princes, twin male love interests was very funny. And I found it very funny that they seemed to be the type of boy that would flirt with anyone, and they were just very hilarious, and I liked that. That was quite nice to have. But they did also irritate me. They annoyed me quite a bit. And I wanted to smack them in the head to wake them up, but that's not how it happens in real life. I did find it funny that there was a little Easter egg of when they opened the old lady's bag after she offers them a treasure of hers, and they reach in to pull out the mirror that Melody is trapped in. When you actually look in that bag, and I'll put a screenshot of this up, there's a Nutcracker from the first film, Nutcracker, and I saw it and I was like, oh, that's the Nutcracker! I thought that was a very clever little Easter egg that Barbie chucked in. The music's also really, really nice, but it could be better, I feel. It's still a good film though, so I'm gonna put it on the same level as Mermaidia, which could have been better, because it could have been better. Next, we have Barbie in the Three Musketeers. This one I watched a lot growing up, and it's one of my favorites. It's probably going to go to the very top, knowing me. I love the film in how they've got, like, the whole Three Musketeers thing. It is a story, it is an actual book written by someone whose name I have forgotten. But I loved how they incorporated characters from the book into the film. Like, for example, and please, I apologize to any French speakers if I stuff up any of the French pronunciations of the characters' names. So Barbie plays Corinne D'Artagnan, who D'Artagnan is the name of the protagonist in the original Three Musketeers film, and so by having Barbie be his daughter was a really nice little connection that they made. And so it's basically, the Barbie film is based after the original Three Musketeers film. And I loved how further on we'd have other characters, like when they were sneaking into the ball, they see that the guy at the top of the stairs is announcing everyone's name when they enter, and they realize, oh gosh, we have to figure out names, and so Barbie goes in as Lady Barbecue. And we have Abby Birthday and Heather Lettuce and all these little play on words. But the character name that was said to announce them was Countess de Winter, which is another character from the original film. And I thought that was really cool that they would just have these little characters popping up here and there, and you wouldn't really notice it unless you knew the world of the original Three Musketeers. The prince did irritate me a bit with the fact that he was so head in the clouds type of thing. But when you actually know about King Louis, he actually was like that in real life. He was a real person in France, and he actually was very much head in the clouds. So it did make sense. I absolutely loved that they brought back Tim Curry to play the voice of the villain. I was watching it and I'm like, is it him? Or is it just someone who sounds like him? And I did some research and it was him, and I thought that's a nice thing, bring him back, because he hasn't been in a Barbie since Nutcracker. So that was really cool, and I loved how it was just a really nice film, because it shows them going against the norms of Musketeers only being men. And so I love this film, and so it's gonna go all the way to superb in every way, because I cannot see anything wrong with it. Now we have a film called Barbie in a Mermaid Tale. This is where we start getting to the world of mermaids, but it's not connected to Fairytopia or Mermaidia, so there's no Norleen, there's no Nalu, there's none of that, right? It was based in Malibu. Yes, in Malibu at modern day and all that stuff. I did find it funny that when Barbie's character, whose name escapes me, I've forgotten her name and I haven't written it down anywhere in my notes, when she goes to the world of the mermaid people after realizing that her mother was a mermaid and all of that, and having to go there to save the ocean and everything, which is the premise of the film, we see shops like Sephora, yet they're called Seaphora or Bloomingdale. So it's all twisted around to be mermaid worded in a way. And they even have a deep sea 3 player instead of a PC3 player, whatever it was called. And so I thought that was really clever, play on words and everything. I also liked how the film had lots of really funny little lines that would come up here and there. I also liked how it had a very creative storyline compared to the rest of the Barbie films. It was very original. And I liked how it also showed, because once again Barbie had to collect some things before she could defeat her evil aunt who's taken over and held her mother captive to defeat her. And so she had to use both skills of being a mermaid and skills of being a surfer on land to impress the special dreamfish, to climb up the rocks in a sea cave, which had like an air pocket so the fish couldn't swim up to the top to get the climb, but she had to climb up it and everything, and it was all very clever to show that she needed both sides of her DNA to defeat the evil person. The only thing with this film is that there's a little plot hole with the dreamfish. When the Barbie is stuck in the swirling whirlpool that her aunt created to keep her in as a prisoner, she calls on the dreamfish to help her and everything. Because dreamfishes, when you call on them after gaining one to trust them and everything, which you have to do by impressing them. She impressed the dreamfish by surfing in like the thing that Crash lives in Nemo. I forgot what it's called, the current thing. But when she calls on the dreamfish, you only get one wish. And the dreamfish is like, you can have your wish to go back to normal and never come back here, and you can be a normal human being and you won't have to worry about being a mermaid and all that stuff. And that's the point in the story where she's like, no, I am half mermaid, I'm gonna protect these people, all that stuff. But then the dreamfish just like vanishes. He never really gives her a wish. And I want to know what happened to the dreamfish. But besides that, this is actually a really good film. And so I'm going to put it with absolute favorite. I think it's definitely one of the best ones out there. The same cannot be said for Barbie in a Mermaid Tale 2. I watched this one and instead of being in Malibu, the surfing competition was at Bondi Beach, which is at Sydney, Australia. It's a really big beach, really, really famous, also really dangerous, so be smart if you're down there. But they introduced an Australian character, Kylie, who's like the rival surfer and everything. Let's come back to Kylie. Let's start off with the idea of the story. The story is that the queen, who's been now freed, has to go sit on a throne where she has to do this every 10-20 years, where she regains the ability to spin Mariposa, which is the essence of the sea, and she creates it and gives it out to the sea. It gives it life and everything. And the whole premise of the first film as to why the evil queen had kidnapped her, had locked the real queen, her sister, in the dungeon was because the evil aunt, who was the queen at the time, couldn't spin Mariposa. And they made it seem in the first film that she was born without the ability to spin Mermaidia, but in the second film, they're like, oh, you actually just need to sit on this throne and you get the ability to spin Mermaidia. Which is a bit odd, because in the first film, they're like, everyone in the family could do it except her. But if it's been a throne thing, you have to sit on the chair to get the ability. That doesn't make any sense, because what if there were other siblings in earlier generations? See what I'm getting at? So that was the only thing. It just kind of dismissed the whole plot of the first film, so I found it really frustrating. Like the story in itself, if it was a standalone film, it would be really, really good. But that whole plot point being completely dismissed and rewritten just really irritated me as a film student. But going back to Kylie, I find it absolutely frustrating that whenever an American film, especially a kids film or kids TV show, is like, oh, we need an Australian accent person, they go for the strongest, most stereotypical Australian accent. I'm Australian. Listen to my voice. I don't have that twang. I don't speak the way Kylie does. And I would listen to it and I was like, please stop talking. You're very frustrating. I don't like it when you speak like that. It's almost like mocking in a way. I should probably figure out if the girl's actually an Australian actress or if she was just American and just did the accent. But I find it really jarring when they go for a specific Australian accent. It's like, for Crocodile Dundee, that makes sense. But modern day Australia, not a lot of us have that twang. So because of that, I'm going to put this at a didn't really like it, along with Island Princess. So the next one is Barbie Princess and the Pop Star, which is a retelling of Princess and the Pauper, but instead of a pauper, it's a pop star, it's modern day, it's all that stuff. It's a good film when you exclude the music. And the reason I say that is that in the original Princess and the Pauper, there's a song, oh, Julian, not Daniel, his name's Julian in the first, sorry. Julian is the teacher in the Princess and the Pauper, gosh, I forgot his name. Julian sings a song to be a princess, where it basically explains to Erica the things you have to do to be a princess and all of that. And they redo that song here, except they made the second verse to be a pop star, which was really frustrating. And they changed the song and I did not like it, and that just kind of ruined the film for me. So I'm gonna put this at a failure to deliver, because if it didn't have the music, it actually would have been quite good, but because they brought back the original stuff, didn't really like it. Okay, I'm gonna fiddle around with these for a bit, come up with a final telling of what I think about them all, and then I'm gonna come back to you with the final results. Okay, so I have put them all in order from the absolute best to the absolute worst, so I'm gonna start at the very, very bottom. I put all the Barbie films that I haven't seen in the didn't see category, obviously, because I haven't seen them. So they're all there at the bottom, but the only one in the who thought making this was a good idea was the Barbie Diaries. Just bad film, bad storyline, bad animation. It was too stupid of them to switch the animation style, make it more realistic, but it didn't look good. Failure to deliver. If we're going from the worst, Princess and the Pop Star and then Thumbelina. So Thumbelina I say is a bit better than Princess and the Pop Star, just a little bit. More so because they didn't have a second Thumbelina film like they did with the Princess and the Pop Star, Princess and the Pauper thing. They just shot themselves in the foot by obviously making it very easy for us to compare the pair with the two princess stories. So then going up next, where I put Barbie and Mermaid Tale 2 before, and then it would be followed by Island Princess in the didn't really like category. If I had to choose between those two, I would prefer to watch the Island Princess, and that is just because the Australian accent just really irritates me, and the giant retelling of the basic story of the first film, I just found it too jarring to not take notice of. Next would be Mermaidia and then Diamond Castle in the could have been better category, because I would rather see Diamond Castle than deal with Noreen's attitude. Sorry to those who love Noreen, I just really hate her as a person. In the basic but delightful, I have The Magic of the Rainbow, then Fairytopia, then Swan Lake, purely because that's the order. I would prefer to watch Swan Lake before either of the Fairytopias, and then if I had to put the Fairytopias against each other, the first one I feel is much better than the second one, just because you have characters like Hugh, who's the giant butterfly, and you get to see more of Elena showing her strengths than the other film, I think. And then we're getting to the top. At the very bottom of this list, we have A Mermaid Tale, followed by Mariposa, then Magic of Pegasus, and at the very top is Nutcracker, and that's my personal opinion of which ones I would prefer to see. But then in the superb in every way, the top 4 Barbie films that I would watch, and are my personal favorites, as well as the ones I think are the best ever Barbie films ever made. At the bottom we have Rapunzel, just because it's a great story, followed by the Three Musketeers, followed by the 12 Dancing Princesses, and surprise, surprise, and I think a lot of us can agree on this, the best Barbie film of all time is Barbie, Princess and the Pauper, because they have amazing cast, amazing songs, amazing storyline, absolute legend of a film. And so, those are my choices, my decisions, my opinions. I'd love to hear what you guys think are the best and the worst Barbie films, what you think of the ones I haven't seen, which ones of the other ones I haven't seen do you think I should watch? And if you would like to let me know, you can let me know in the comment section down below and I might respond, you never know. I might be a bit too busy, but I will get there eventually. Also, if you like this video, don't be afraid to click that like button down below. It really helps out the channel and it helps me figure out an idea of what else to do on the channel. And if you haven't already and you want to see more videos from me, I have quite a few ideas coming up at the end of the year. Don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, the big red button down below. As always, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye, guys.